once I did my residency, I became a clinical pharmacist. I worked in general medicine and intermediate ICU. And I have to say, that was exactly where I wanted to be. I said, this is my goal. I wanted to be part of that, and I achieved that goal. And it was a great experience. And if anything else, the residency and this clinical experience really built a strong clinical foundation. And even though my pathway was very different than somebody who might have done a fellowship, and I kind of see those who have done a fellowship and their experience, and then I look at my own. And I kind of also look at this because I'm luckily enough to be in a position where I'm hiring people with these types of backgrounds, and I'm specifically looking for who might be successful doing sort of this type of role. And I do look at those with a residency very highly because I know from, experience that now you have a very strong clinical background. You've been in the hospital, you've rounded with physicians, you've been part of the multidisciplinary team. And that's something that you can never gain elsewhere,
Mhm.
right? Without that experience. And to me, that lays such a huge foundation because now you understand the nomenclature, the discussion, whatever the physicians are saying when you're meeting with them as a, medical science liaison. You know exactly what they mean when they're saying, "Oh, these are the labs I order," or "This is what's happening to the patient." You understand that. And I find that to be extremely strong because to me, then they more often than not look to you as a peer. So it's more of a peer-to-peer conversation. Now, folks who have done the fellowship, now they have a different advantage because they know the different types of things within the organization. But I do feel that maybe where they lack a little bit is that experience in the hospital. So what they hear is mostly what they've learned maybe from school, but to have that additional residency, I think helps with that. So from my perspective, how I kind of thought about it is sort of like I wanted to explore something a little bit different. I'd done, precepting students, I precepted residents. But one area that I knew is like, I don't know anything really about industry. I, at that point, had been invited to a couple of dinner programs. They were sponsored by different companies just to learn a little bit more about either a disease state or a drug. And I kind of went to one. I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is something that's really interesting that I never thought about before, like an opportunity to work in the industry to educate physicians, and seeing a different side, a corporate side of sort of industry itself. And so at that particular moment, I thought about going up to the person who was doing the presentation, but I kind of was a little bit afraid at the time. I was like, oh, there's no way that they would be, interested in me. A week later, I ended up calling one of my old preceptors at UCSF, and I think he's still there. He's the bone marrow transplant pharmacist, Courtney Ewan, and he's amazing. So he actually had a very good friend who was looking to hire or backfill the position that, she just got promoted to manager. She needed to backfill her position as well. And the funny thing was, she ended up being the person that I went to that dinner program the week before, and it just happened that way. So he got me in contact with her, and I was just curious to know what was the role. Again, not having done a fellowship, I don't even know exactly what their objectives were. And so she explained it to me, and it really piqued my interest in terms of like, wow, okay, so I can take my PharmD, I can take all of the information that I've learned before. That's my clinical foundation. And now I'm going to focus on one therapeutic area. And for me at that time, that was Bristol Myers Squibb doing viral hepatitis, which aligned very closely with my interest in infectious disease. And so, it happened to be field-based, which is good. I didn't need to like go into a home office, so I could work from home, but I would be responsible again to cover the Pacific Northwest and Northern California, and then sort of work the territory like it was my own, like do whatever I needed to and make my own schedule. So that to me was very different. But I wanted to give that a try, and I was sort of at least young enough, I think at the time to make that pivot, rather than being so entrenched in sort of where I was. Had I been there 10 years, it might have been very different. But that's sort of how my stint in sort of industry began.